Thank you very much and welcome you again to the second part of the session today on distance learning to enhance teacher professional development and learning outcome of the students. For today, you have listened from various countries in the world. I think this is a very good opportunity for us to hear from the perspective of Thailand, within Asia ourselves, China, and in Europe, both UK and from Dr. Nami's country. Now, when we talk about distance learning, I'd like to focus on three things that we will discuss during this 1 hour. The first key issue that we are here is teacher. When we talk about distance learning, how does it impact on teacher? The second issue, the scope, is the content itself. Because when we use distance learning, the substantive of what the student learn is the content. So that's the second issue. And then the third issue is the student themselves, how they can learn from this tool. So what we would like to discuss under the scope that we will talk today will be under three issues that I'd like to talk to the panel, because you have heard of their experience in different countries. So the narrow part will be teacher, content, and the student. I'd like to first start with the teacher perspective with อาจารย์นราพรนะคะ What from the experience of Thailand under the project of DLTV, how do you prepare the teacher? Because I see from your presentation there's a teacher in the remote area and there's a teacher who are the resource. How do you prepare and connect them? Can you share the experience of that?
Thank you. As for the use of the LTV in Thailand, the first thing that we have to make sure that works effectively is the resource teachers. It's the teachers in the parent school. They have to, that's what I have mentioned in my talk, that it's a very demanding job because they have to prepare the teaching, prepare everything starting from the lesson plan, the teaching materials and the teaching methods in order to attract both the students and the teachers in remote schools.
So try to get their attention of do they get a chance to meet with each other at all or any of these teachers?
Yes, indeed. Apart from the social media that they use to communicate with each other between the resource teachers and the remote teachers, they also meet from time to time. We organize a workshop or meeting for the resource teacher and the remote teachers to meet and discuss what has been done so far in the past year, and they share their knowledge, their techniques, and that's a good thing to do so they can exchange information and improve the teaching and learning process in both sides.
Great. That is a very good model that they not only meet online where Facebook, but they also get a chance to meet in person when they have a workshop. So that is one perspective. Now, Dr. Xiaoxing, I'd like to also ask the same question with you in terms of teacher professional development. But before that, let me ask the audience, how many of you are teachers here? Could you please raise your hand? Teachers? Okay. ใครเป็นคุณครูบ้างคะช่วยยกมือให้หน่อยค่ะ อาจารย์คุณครู These are teachers, so you know your audience. Now, who are the school principal? ใครเป็นผู้บริหารคะผู้บริหาร Great. Now you have the combination of that. And the one who are not raising your hand, you are superwoman, supervisor. Yes, supervisor at the provincial area. นะคะ So these are the audience. For the teacher part, now Professor Xiaoxing can share with the teacher here what the experience of East China Normal University when you prepare them for your model, the 3 model that you use distance learning. Can you tell them how so that they can prepare themselves when they want to use this content in distance learning?
All right. As I mentioned in my talk, that every project has a part of the investment specifically to the teacher training, and at the same time, our MOE has initiated 3 rounds of national teacher training project focused on how to integrate ICT in education, and I'm involved in the design of the teacher training project in the national level and the national training level. And our experience is firstly we have a teacher training program, and we train we termed backbone of teacher, which means that the training teachers, they themselves will be the training for their local teachers. It's a kind of systematic teacher training system, and the main content of the teacher training is focused on not only on how to use the ICT itself, but more focused on how to use the ICT materials in their local contextual teaching activities.
Yes. Dr. Xiaoxing, when you said you design the teacher training,
Yeah.
because your university do a lot of teacher training,
Yeah.
you design by having a workshop, or you design by having the teacher learn from the distance, or blended? What is the strategy?
We design the training sessions, which means materials, learning, training activities for the use of the teacher training. The materials will be in mixed way, which means that we have guidelines of the teacher training activities.
So they do on-site training, and they also do online training.
Yeah, we have different. We have a mixed training ways. We do face-to-face.
For example, because it's very interesting, and this model can be used for Thailand as well. That's why I'd like to narrow down. For example, if your university design a training module for teacher, then this module is given to the provincial area, so that with using the guideline, then they can use it to train the teacher in that province. And then the teacher themselves can also study online.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it can work well with Thailand as well, because this is the good model that we can use. But the difference would be in Thailand, there's a content that can be delivered on TV and on internet, but yours is have different sets of equipment. You have 3 modules, right? You have one with just the TV. Can you tell what are the difference of these 3? And when you design the training, are you design it differently for each sets of equipment?
The training materials is not different based on the equipment. Usually, the cases we use in the training will be different. Cases we used will be different, because the teachers need to know how to do the learning design by taking into their local conditions into consideration. So we use different cases for teachers as their reference. Yeah.
So now you're talking about the difference of different sets of equipment because of the content. because you show example. When you train, you provide example practices in those modules. That reminds me of the presentation which will link to Professor Norbert and Professor Niemi about students, because this is the first perspective of teachers that we're talking about. The second perspective, and I will come back later on for the teacher, is student. When they learn from here, do you think the teacher themselves needs to be aware of the learning style of the students? Perhaps maybe Professor Norbert can share with us, you're talking about different learning styles that can link to teacher effectiveness. Yes.
I think the two areas are obviously very, very closely interrelated and interlinked. At my university, one of the things we are trying to do is develop teacher professional development programs that are mixed mode, that use technology as an integral part. And in one sense, we're trying to address difficulties of geographical distance and so forth through that, so very pragmatic reasons. But in part, it's also an opportunity for teachers, by being online learners themselves, to be able to empathize with the experience of being an online learner from the student's perspective, and therefore much better understand the challenges that they face in the process of being online and distance learners themselves. So I think that's quite important because it has not necessarily been part of their formal schooling themselves, and it's through that empathy that they're then going to be able to find useful interventions. So there are clearly very important differences between face-to-face pedagogy and distance learning online pedagogy. One area being, for example, and that links to your talk as well, the area of what's called e-facilitation, how you bring about meaningful communication between the teacher and the learner, as well as the learners and the learners. And it's these sorts of skills, I think, that are best developed through opportunities for practice and not just through opportunities through observation.
That's very important, because in order for teacher to prepare themselves so that they can use this distance learning method, they themselves have to be the learner of online distance learning so that they know what it feels like. Then they can pass the knowledge to the students. That is the student-teacher linkage perspective. I like to carry it over to the content part because it's also relevant. This I'd like to address the question to Professor Niemi on terms of content. When we develop the training material for the teachers so that they can use distance learning, would the content be different from other type of learning, books, even TV, online? Can you share with us how do you prepare the teacher on the content?
Yeah, thank you. I think that very important question about the contents, but then I would like to ask first for which purposes contents are needed and used, because I think that if the main purpose is that students pass some examination, contents are very much related to that examination. But if we are thinking that through these contents students can learn other kind of life skills or learning to learn skills or something which is important for their own personal life, then contents have different other kind of nature. And I think that in distance learning in Finland, we very often have also so-called project-based learning, and students create their projects using different kind of online resources. And then contents certainly are important, but that means that that is own resource, and it gives different perspectives and basis for their own products. So it's not only that they can like transmit for themselves from online course directly. They have to learn what is the most essential part of that content and make then their own conclusion and product based on that. So I think that in online learning it's important that there are a rich variety of different contents which students can use for different kinds of purposes, and in that sense teacher's role is important, that teacher can facilitate them to find and also in some levels also help them to find what are the most important issues in contents. So I think that there is not only one way to produce content, so it's much more question what kind of learning we are purposed for.
And that's also important when we want to prepare teacher professional development. You talk about learning of teacher fit the lifestyle of the teacher. And Ajahn Naraporn mentioned at the beginning of how you get the teacher to talk via Facebook. This is also the lifestyle of teacher these days. How many of you have Facebook? No, I should ask different. How many of you do not have Facebook? Do not use Facebook? No hands, meaning everyone use Facebook. So it's very culture, Facebook. And this is the style of, depending on age too. Very interesting. When we want to prepare teacher with this type of learning, how do you think it will be useful for them, especially in Thai context, to use this style of learning and pass it on to students so that they can gain more knowledge, because it's very much fits to their lifestyle? What is your view of that with using this social media and learning distance?
I think at the moment in Thailand, the use of social media has been increased so much in the teaching and learning process. The students also sometimes, send their assignments or homeworks, through the social media to the teachers, and I think that happens these days. Yeah, that social media is another means of communication and learning in this situation. Yeah.
Compared to other type of media, you have TV, you have social media, in the past we have radio. We can learn distance from the radio. Do you think the TV, this new style will benefit the Thai teacher and the student, especially in the remote area where distance education becomes important?
I think it should be an integration of all technologies and the teacher themselves. The teacher, I think, is the most important part in delivering the knowledge and the skills to the learners. We cannot let technology to replace the teachers. Technology cannot replace the teachers. Anyway, the technology is the kind of a supplement to the teaching and learning process.
Thank you. That's a very good key message, that it should be the combination of all media, and it depends on the teacher to choose the best use. Dr. Nemi, you have something about social media?
I would like to emphasize this teacher sharing culture, that they really share something, their learning materials and lessons plans, whatever. We have experiences that there are many subject-specific teacher social media groups. It can be Facebook, but it can be also other platforms. And for example, science teachers, they have very active discussion group, social media group, and they really share their new ideas. Also, they can ask questions. Now I have this theme in my lesson. How I could make that very motivating for my students, and there are then responses. So this kind of sharing are very important, and that is very often very spontaneous. So that if there are enough people, then it starts to work, and it inspiring those participants. So I really see that very important.
A platform for sharing, and most of the time teachers learn from peers. That's very important. In Thailand, one of the platform of social media that is very important and popular is Line. Everyone use Line. So in the and we have saying that if you're above what certain age group, in the morning the style of you send message to each other will be flowers, the early morning. I can see lots of smile. This is a pattern that we share. Then later, and if you're a lower age group, then you'll send stickers of all those cartoons. But this can be used for teacher to exchange of lesson plan, of knowledge, of talking together. Now in China, Professor Xiaoxing, do you use social media for teacher professional development?
Of course, we also use social media. But we're not using Facebook, but we have other social medias as alternatives. Like you mentioned Line, we have a WeChat. I guess WeChat is WeChat. WeChat is also similar like Line, because I also use the Line. I guess WeChat is have the most large user group, because the population in China and also other overseas users. So we use WeChat as one of social media, and also we use QQ. Yes, it's a tool. It's a social media tool that not only can have instant message, but also have shared space for teachers and the students to share their like lesson plans, share their experience, share everything. So yeah, we also use social media as a tool to promote the teacher learning and the students learning.
Do you find it useful for your teacher training, using social media like you said?
Yeah, it's very useful in different ways. One way is that it makes the connections between remote teachers very convenient, and also make the sharing is much more easier for them. And also sometimes when teachers like the synchronous connected classroom, teachers need to design the lesson plans collaboratively, then they can use a shared space to edit the same lesson plans remotely. So it's very useful to them. Yeah.
Yes, because we talk about teacher professional development, and to help teacher use it, it has to be something that they interested in and they like to use it. Then they can use it. If not, it will just be there. So by using social media in your practice, it's very interesting and useful. And it is very cultural too. I work all over Southeast Asia. Social media is very cultural. Thailand, we use a lot Line. If you go to Indonesia use WhatsApp as a platform for exchange of information. And if you go to Philippines, they use Viber. Yes, and in China you use different things. Do you have a different apps in your country? Because we're talking about platform for teacher exchange so they can use it to share their ideas when they're teaching. Any things that you like to share in terms of social medias?
I think in the UK, the whole phenomenon that previous speakers have mentioned is also obviously very common. We encourage it at the university level as well, in the form of what we call communities of practice, online communities of practice. And they obviously operate at various different levels. We tend to support all our courses through virtual learning environments that have a closed dimension to them, which is important at some level in that it fosters a certain sense of security, a certain sense of knowledge of who your partners in conversation are. It fosters the willingness to be open to share not only what has worked particularly well for you, but those areas where you may feel less secure, and it's often those areas where you can learn most from the support of others. But of course, students will then operate their own social networks using applications such as WhatsApp or some on Facebook. Those would probably be the two most widely used in the UK context.
We talk about teacher, we talk about the platform where they can share experience. I'd like to continue the conversation with you in terms of learning content, because in your presentation you mentioned about the learner design content, and this is very much linked to the learning style. How do we address the learning style of new generation these days so that they will having fun using distance learning?
So I think the whole notion of learning styles is a complex one. And if you start to look at the literature in that particular area, you will find that it is a contested one as well. So I would be more inclined for us to think about in terms of cultural practices that our young people engage in their everyday life worlds, and try and understand those and build on those in order to bridge, as you were talking about, the informal to the formal learning context. So I wouldn't get too hung up about learning styles. The point I would, in relation to content, that I would make is very clearly content is important, but is only one of a number of very important aspects. In relation to content itself, I think it's very important, as we've seen through the presentations this morning, that increasingly it's not a matter of teachers generating content, but it's about users starting to generate content, and it's about finding ways in which we can meaningfully integrate what I call in my language student agency, the students actively contributing to that process into our classrooms. But it's not just content and the generation of content that new technologies enable. Mobile technologies in particular also allow users to generate their own contexts for learning increasingly, and remain or able not to have to rely on that which the educational institution manages to provide, but through what I called convergence, through connectivity, through multifunctionality of devices, are able to create for themselves the sorts of ecology that draws in other networks, external repositories, and so forth. So I think I'd encourage us to think a little bit more widely than just about content.
And that is crucial in my perspective in distance learning, because when you want the student learn, the content is important. Your point of learner as content developer, in your PowerPoint mentioned about student as a creator of the content. So this is very much linked to not only one way, feed it to them, but they themselves have to create. Can you share with us that perspective, that link to distance learning, that the student themselves can create their own content, be critical thinker?
Right. So there are several opportunities how students can create contents. We have one study which is around mobile devices. Students create their digital story, little videos, for example, curriculum-related study, chemistry or physics or history, whatever. Let's take example. What is water and water in my neighborhood, and then they take video clips and upload them to the server and then share in the classroom all those pictures, and then they create in pairs or in groups story. What is water in my neighborhood? And then they present that to others. We have also international connection, how they present to other countries, the classroom somewhere in the other part of the world. And when they are creating that video story, they have to first inquiry about facts about water, but after then they start to think what is the most essential part in this knowledge and how I can put that into video, and think about that I am teaching now some other to learn what is water in my environment. So there are a huge amount of different kind of processes, learning processes, when they are creating that video, including also some technological issues, but I think that the main issue is that they have to think about what is the most important. Can I rely on the information I can find, because there are also very contradictory information. So when students are knowledge creators, they have to make a lot of work, and very often it's hard work also. Not only that they are taking videos, but very often they say, yes, we enjoyed very much that. It was very fun also to do that product together.
So because by engaging in the learning, they learn. They're interested in, and this is a very good example of how students can use their 21st century skills, because they can do critical thinking, problem solving, and be the content creator. But to be able to do that, the teacher themselves has to be the facilitator, to lead them to create. And in order to be able to lead them, they have to understand first. I like to link to the point to Ajahn Naraporn at the beginning of your slide. You mentioned teacher as a change maker. For Thai teacher, not many of them are used to be a facilitator. What would be your suggestion to them so that they can change their role to be a facilitator of distance learning?
That's the big question, and that's the thing that needs to be done gradually, because most Thai teachers, they still think of themselves as a teacher, as an imparter of the knowledge, and they prescribe what is in the book, prescribe the content to the students, and that's I think in using the distance learning television in Thailand, we just think of the problem of the teacher shortage. And so we think only that how to deliver the knowledge as prescribed in the curriculum to the students in remote areas. That's our first stage mission, right? So because it's much better than having no teacher at all, because in our remote areas, in a lot of small schools, perhaps thousands of small schools, where they operate grade 1 to 6 classes, but they have only 2 to 3 teachers taking care of 6 grades. And so that means that, one teacher has to run two classes, teach 2 classes at the same time. And so, at least the LTV offers the teaching of all subjects. However, this is the first stage that we have successfully delivered the content as based on the curriculum. However, in terms of the student-generated knowledge, we would love to see that in the future, in the near future. And from parent school, the broadcast class, it takes about 50 minutes each class, but the broadcast class takes about 40 minutes. We leave 10 minutes for the teachers in remote areas to work on their own. At the beginning, to contextualize the students, to familiarize the students before the broadcast class begin, and then at the end, perhaps 5, 6, 7 more minutes to summarize the important points or to get feedback from the students on the work that they have done with the broadcast class. And also we try to encourage the teachers in remote areas to have the students work by themselves more. When you talk about the project-based learning, we also have that, but not through the distance learning television at the moment. We assign the projects, and we hope that the teachers in distant areas would work on that with the students in their extra time. And then, they can give presentation, or, they can send the presentation of their students through the social media to us so that we can share. Yeah, because this is a kind of a step by step, because it's very difficult to change, as you said, to change the role of the teachers. That, now they are, especially teachers using the LTV, they are more like a manager of the learning. They are more like a supervisor, a monitor, as facilitator. They have to accept this role, because at the moment in this era of technological advancement, knowledge is everywhere. It's not only in the book. The book is not the Bible anymore. Knowledge is not only in the classroom. The students themselves, they can create their own knowledge with the support of the teachers.
Thank you very much for sharing that insightful thought. Then, similar to China, but I think when Ajahn Navaraporn mentioned about remote area in Thailand, in your presentation you also show schools in the remote area in China. How do you get the teacher to use distance education with the context of remote area like that? Similar to Thailand, or how do you kind of push their moral?
Push the teachers to use resources. In some cases, the teachers have to, like in the second project, the full coverage of learning in sport, there's only 1 or sometimes 2 teachers to teach all of the subjects. If they don't use the IC resources, they have no idea how to teach that kind of subject. So in this case, the teachers have to, and the resources are very welcome by these teachers, because with the support of that kind of resources, the teachers can learn how to teach a subject they cannot to teach previously, and by learn via the ICT resources, they also actually have the opportunities learn how to teach.
When you said the teacher have to, is there a policy in the school or at the provincial level, because we have a lot of school administrator, do they issue policy for the school to use this? If not, the teacher will be marked as unperformed or something like that. That's why you said they have to. In what way?
When I said have to, it's just because a teacher, if the subject need to be taught by that teacher, he or she have to use support. And if the teaching sport cannot provide all subjects that the national curriculum required, then it cannot be sustained as a qualified teaching sport or school. So in this way, the teacher have to use resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the issue in terms of teacher professional development and by using distance learning, I like to seek your expertise. Oftentimes, teacher doesn't use it because on one hand, they already have a lot of teaching load in the school. On the other hand, if they have to use it, then the technology part will be so much of a hassle. TV is not working, computer's not working, might as well forget it because it's such a waste of time. What would be your suggestion if these teachers, they want to use it, but with all these constraints, they give up? Anything that, because you mentioned about dropout, right? Anything that share with them to encourage their practices?
I think one of the things that is clearly very important is the very starting point, the first slide we've seen about dispositions towards being a lifelong learner. I think it's very, very important that colleagues think of themselves as professionals for whom a willingness to continue to engage in professional learning themselves is very, very important. And that, of course, as I said earlier, does include a willingness to confront those areas of one's own professional practice that don't work that well, and difficulties around the use of technology in one's teaching might be one such area. And I think in part we've already provided an answer to this, and there's also an answer that's borne out by research, and that is that shared practice and collaborative activities just tend to work that much better than activities that are undertaken in isolation. So I think it's very, very important to put in place a supportive infrastructure that allows collaboration both within the immediate setting, where there is one or two other teachers maybe in the school, but also at a distance. And I think the other thing that's probably worth adding is that not just a project-based approach to learning, but also an inquiry-based approach to one's own learning is quite important. So working from really burning issues or burning questions about one's own practice, trying to find out why those things are happening and what possible solutions there might be, can provide a very useful incentive for individuals to actually engage in these processes of lifelong learning.
Right. Very, very often that happens, that there are problems in technical issues, and I think that teachers are very much afraid of these problems. Maybe we should accept the situation that failing is start of learning, then next time maybe that would be better. And I think that there are always some technical difficulties and it's frustrating, but I think that if teachers could also accept that, yes, maybe I have to ask advice from my colleague or from my students. Students very often can even help, or then we can make a new plan immediately. What life is that we have to make plans also in working life. We have to change our plan very immediately. So I think that in Finland we have some research and studies what is typical in schools that has taken new technology for everyday life in their schools. And one very important element is that they accept failings. And secondly, that is very wide communication and sharing culture in those schools, that they share also those problems that, yes, I had this difficulty, how I could solve that. Maybe next time it's better when I'm trying to that. So I think that maybe we have to accept and give also model for our students that how we can jointly solve some technical problems. But then I could also emphasize that there should be from administration part some support services, so that there are working infrastructure and there are also some persons, experts who can help. That can be also that in teaching staff there have different kinds of duties connected to technology, and some of them are more focused on technical problems, and also some are more how to make some modifications for learning resources, or so that they are sharing also those duties with technology.
Thank you very much. อาจารย์นราพรค่ะ
In terms of technical problems or technical aspects, I agree that we need to give full support starting from the administration. Here, perhaps the Ministry of Education as well as the educational areas to give full support in terms of the equipment and facilities. And also, that has always been the case here as well, that we have the first investment in the equipment, but we don't have the investment in terms of the maintenance of the equipment, and that has always been the case I think in a lot of countries, and in China as well as in Thailand. So it's quite important in order to keep the technology going. We have to make sure that the technical support is there for the teachers. And especially here, the teachers, as you mentioned, some of us, we are too old to learn the new technology. And so if we have some technical team, to help us out, when it's out of order, that would be much better. However, apart from the technical aspect, I would like to touch upon again on the people aspect. Because it's important, the teachers especially, they play a very important role in making use of technology. And if they don't understand, they don't cooperate, and this will not happen. Some of them might say, for example, in our case, they would say that well, if we use the DLTV, we have to arrange our timetable according to the parent school, which in fact, the parent school in Bangkok school, we start school at 8:30 in the morning, while several schools across the country start school at a.m. And I myself don't see it as a problem because with a little adjustment and you have full classes for your students. And also in terms of the teaching, as I said that the teachers have to change role, being manager, facilitator, supervisor. So I would just like to tell you that I would like to ask, please give it a try. Any technology, please give it a try. If it's for the betterment of your your students' education, please give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very thought-provoking. Give it a try. If you don't try, you never know, right? So what about in China? How do you overcome all those challenges?
In our country, actually, with each of these projects, we have a technical support plan, which also very systematically developed. There are county level supporting team and also local supporting team to help teachers to tackle any technical problems that may occur in their using process. And for some remote areas that the instant tackle team may have problems to come over, actually the project model was used in such a way that the technical problems may rarely happen, which means that model 1, especially model 1, which have been developed in remote areas, the technical issues was usually not an issue because the technology is well developed and there are no such things like doesn't work or something like that because it's very easy use for technology. Our keywords in this project is easy, easy and enough and workable. That means this technology is not very comprehensive and it's easy for teachers to use it and it rarely have problems when teachers are using them.
So in China, you have not only the teacher they have to use, but you have administrator and policy level support team to help if they run into all these challenges. So we have heard the experience from all the speakers today that they share their experience in terms of teacher, in terms of content, and in terms of learners within the scope of distance learning and the outcome. I'd like each speakers to perhaps give us a very short 1-minute message that you'd like to tell our teachers and audience here in terms of distance learning and teacher professional development and student outcome. What would be the most important key message for you to give to them so that they can use distance learning to benefit quality of education for their student? Professor Norbert?
Thank you. It's quite a challenging task you're setting us here. But I think the most important thing to facilitate the effective use of technology is a thorough understanding of the potential of different technologies in relation to the specific learning outcomes that one wants to enable students to understand, know, and be able to do. And each technology has different strengths, has different limitations, and unless we really engage in the process of understanding these and using technology in a targeted way, it's not likely that we're gonna maximize the potential.
Thank you. Professor Nim?
So I think that distance learning can provide huge potential for equal opportunities, but it doesn't work only in such a way that we put some online material for available. I think that the most important is that teachers have facilitators of facilitating, and also learners have support, because they need, both teachers and learners, new skills to use technology for learning purposes. And I think that it's something which is very human, that there is also supported face-to-face or just being very, very close learners. Even those adult and they're in the phase of university level, many students need some support for their learning, even learning to learn skills. And I think that what kind of support we need in normal classroom learning, we need that kind of support also in distance learning, but in addition, some kind of understanding how we can use these resources for our lifelong learning paths.
Thank you. อาจารย์นราพรล่ะคะ
No matter what technology we are using, whether it be the satellite television, the online, or the social media, the most important thing is we have to know how to use it properly and effectively. And also, these are only the supplement to learning different kinds of media. The most important component in teaching and learning is the people, and people includes teachers and learners, and we have to plan ahead how to use this technology in order to encourage both the teachers and the learners to be lifelong learners.
Thank you. Xiaoxing?
The message I would like to deliver from my experience of distance education is, in one word, adapt the resources that are provided from other areas, from other teachers, to serve the local learning needs for local teachers. So the teachers need to learn how to make use of these learning resources with contextual instruction needs of their students. So basically, this is what I learned, and I think which is most important for distance education.
Yes. Thank you for all the insightful and the key messages. For myself, I'd like to share the reflection as a summary, because I think you have heard all of the speakers talk about their ideas, but I'm not going to summarize, but I'd like to reflect on the three key issues that we start out in the scope from the beginning. And I would also like to invite you all to reflect yourself before you leave the room. What have you gained from the discussion? For me, while I listened to all the speakers, on the first reflection that I learned from teacher is that personal leadership is very important. Teacher, they have to be the change maker. Start first, try, like Ajahn Narapon said. try first. In that way, you will know how to use it and it can benefit. My second reflection that I learned from the speaker on the content is that when you want to use distance education in the content, there are levels. First level is something simple. You just tell the student to do. This is in the Thai context where there's no teacher in each subject. But more advanced will be inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning. Students themselves create the knowledge. So this is the content where you adjust the level according to the user. Okay? Then my third reflection is about the learner themselves. The learner, they have to be open to new learning skills. This is the 21st century skill, and this is the lifelong learning skills. They need to be able to know these skills, and this is the whole thing that they have to do. So those are my 3 reflections that I've learned from the discussion. So I hope you have the same, and it can be carried over to make the best use of your teaching and learning, because it's not very often we can hear all the experts sharing their experience. So thank you very much for your time, and I would like to invite all of you to join me to give me a big round of applause to all the speakers today. Thank you very much.